Welcome to Astrology in the Bible Part 3, The Fall of Man. In this video, you're going to learn about the tree of knowledge, God's judgment, and how we descend from Adam. Before we get into this astronomical fall of man, I want to take the time to recap a few things that we covered in the previous video and maybe make mention of a couple things we might have missed. The truth is that a lot of this information is so deep and it's so vast, and there's always more. It's impossible to fit it all in to one video within reason. And, I'm always learning more. And it's hard to organize this information, to be quite frank with you. But either way, we're just going to get right into it. The gate of men is associated with birth, as you've learned in the previous video. And Capricorn is the gate of the gods, which is associated with death. Cancer, the gate of men. Capricorn, the gate of the gods. Pretty simple. And I mentioned that every year we, at the longest day of the year, touch 0 degrees Cancer. And since this is the gate of men, we are actually descending through Cancer, because from 0 degrees Cancer and on through the rest of the sign, we're descending. And from 0 degrees Capricorn and onward through the rest of the sign, we're ascending. So we got a descending and an ascending side. Now, Cancer, the gate of men, is associated with birth and conception, and it's the mother. As we've already mentioned, the moon and Cancer both rule the mother. They're associated with the mother, and we all enter this world through our mother in some way or another. Even if, somehow you're born some other way, it takes an egg. Cancer also rules eggs, by the way. But that's for a later video. Something I failed to mention is Capricorn. See, well, Cancer is also a water sign. We mentioned that too, right? Like you're born out of your mom's water. Pretty simple. But see, the gate of the gods, Capricorn, is associated with death. But we also mentioned that it's an earth sign and it's ruled by Saturn, which rules the soil. So in the gate of men, our vessel is created and we're born through our mother. But then through the gate of the gods, we drop our vessel off. So as we ascend through the gate of the gods through Capricorn, the reason why it's associated with earth and it's ruled by Saturn, I shouldn't say the reason, but how this correlates with the gate of the gods with earth and Saturn is because when you die, you leave your body on earth and it goes back to the dust. It goes back to the ground. It becomes dust, rather, and it goes back to the ground, and then you're reabsorbed into this whole system. So Cancer is associated, it's associated with the human mother. Capricorn is associated with the earth mother. Wait a minute, what the hell's going on? I thought one was male, one was female. Yes. Cancer is associated with Eve. Capricorn is associated with Adam, as we covered in the previous video. One is a woman and one is a man. But the way this zodiac astrology stuff works is that it's multi-dimensional, multi-layered. And though they're opposite signs, polar opposite signs, they're the same gender. All polar opposite signs are the same gender. They're both feminine signs. Even though Saturn is a male planet and rules Capricorn, it's said to be an impotent planet because he's an elderly planet, an old planet. He rules the elderly and old things. But Capricorn, the sign, is a feminine sign. Okay? So that's very important to understand because, see, so up here we got the human mother. And here we got the earth mother. Remember, Capricorn is an earth sign and it's ruled by Saturn. And when you die and you ascend through the gate of the gods, you drop off your body and it goes back to the earth. Capricorn is said to be the most feminine sign in the zodiac. And that makes a lot of sense. Because even though Cancer is ruled by the moon and the mother and all that, Capricorn, though it's ruled by Saturn, is a feminine sign too, but it represents the very bottom of the zodiac. It represents the ground, and the earth receives all eventually in due time. Saturn rules time too, by the way. And in due time, your contract expires. Saturn rules contracts. So your contract to live on this planet is that you must enter through the gate of men, Cancer, your mother, and then exit through the gate of the gods. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust. And then you go back to the ground where you came from. Remember, in the Bible, it says that Adam was created from the dust of the ground and that he would eventually go back to that. So anyways, I just thought I'd share that with you real quick. We'll get more into these, hermetic principles like the principle of polarity, the principle of gender. They're very similar, but they're different. And the reason why they're different, especially, it's especially prominent in the zodiac system is what I'm trying to say, because polar opposite signs don't mean they're different genders. Okay? But anyways, every year we go from the longest day of the year to the shortest day of the year. We go from summer, the summer solstice, to the winter solstice, and we go from north to south. And then we also must be born before we die. So going from, also, oh yeah, I forgot to mention, Cancer is associated with the moon. Moon is the lord of Cancer, and moon, the Akkadian name for the moon god, is Sin. Sin is associated with Eve more than it is Adam, not because it's something sexist or something. It's because this is astrology, this is symbolism, and there's a metaphor behind this. Remember, the lord of Cancer is the moon. The Akkadian name of the moon god is Sin, and due to original sin, we fell. And yes, Adam ate the fruit from the tree of knowledge as well. But it started with Eve. Okay, and there's a reason why. Because Eve is associated with Cancer. When we go from being born until we die, when we go from Cancer to Capricorn, longest day of the year to the shortest day of the year, when we go from north to south, this is known as, wait for it, fall of man. You see, Libra, the sign here that you see highlighted, is associated with the very beginning of fall. Why is that? Because 0 degrees Libra attaches itself to the fall equinox. The halfway point between the longest day of the year and the shortest day of the year, but on the descending side of this wheel, is the first day of fall. Period. So, you think that's a coincidence? Well, let me show you some other coincidences. See, Libra, 0 degrees Libra attaches itself to the fall equinox, the halfway point between the longest day of the year and the shortest day of the year on the descending side of decreasing light. So it is associated and is the representative of the descending force, kind of like descending into matter. Think about that for a second. You see, Eve's curse was associated with birth. Adam's curse was associated with death. So, and remember, Cancer is ruled by the moon, whose other name is Sin. And due to original sin, we fell. Due to original sin, we fell. You see? Because Cancer, the Lord of Cancer is the moon, which is sin. And we fell due to original sin. And is also associated with Eve. Okay? Now, there's a lot to this. This is going to be, we're already 9 minutes into this video. But Libra is attached, as you can tell here, to the dark side of the zodiac. It's the beginning of the dark side of the zodiac. It's a cardinal sign. It's gray because it's an air sign, and it's ruled by Venus. That's the glyph that you see. Venus is associated with several different things that coincidentally correspond with the biblical story of Eve and Adam and the fall in the garden. So we're going to go over a few of these associations. We'll move me up here. Libra's Lord is Venus, goddess of love. Rules the themes of marriage, relationships, love, fertility, and desire. And it's the original placeholder of the 7th house, which we're going to get into. That's very important. And the biblical association with the sign is the tree of knowledge, desire, to know, and the fall of man. Now, we already covered the fall of man part, but it gets a lot deeper. Look, Libra represents the judgment. Because, see, Eve's curse is associated with birth. Adam's is associated with death. They both fell, yes. And this is all because of eating the fruit from the tree of knowledge. So it was a desire to know that caused this. Okay? The Lord commanded Eve and Adam not to eat from the tree of knowledge. And the serpent told them that, if they ate from the tree of knowledge, that they would become as gods. And it wasn't a lie. And God told them that once they did that, they would surely die. Now, fall is when things are visibly starting to die. Leaves are falling from the trees. Libra is the placeholder of the fall, as I've mentioned, or the beginning portion of fall, the fall equinox, and throughout the third portion of fall, and is ruled by Venus, the planet of desire. Now remember, it was a desire to know. Venus rules desire. Venus also rules fruit in astrology. Fruit is ruled by Venus because she's the god of fertility. Venus is the lord of Libra, which represents love and relationships. Now, remember, Eve was cursed with birth. How do you think she would have to conceive? She got knocked up, period. So this is associated with a sexual fall, okay? So it's a sexual fall. This is associated with that, which goes right back into Venus, okay? Now, remember, this is a tree of knowledge. This is a tree of knowledge. So it's a tree, and it's associated with knowledge. Libra is connected to this idea of liter, a unit of measurement. Libra is the scales of the marketplace and of justice and of judgment. And this is where God's judgment came into play, because they ate the fruit from the tree of knowledge, and then they fell. They awakened. They realized they were naked, okay? And obviously, they had sex because now Eve is cursed with conception. Or at least this is somehow associated with sex. And Libra is associated with love and relationships and desire and marriage and all that stuff, and fertility. This Libra coming from the word, or liter coming from the word Libra, this all has to do with measurement, like the scales of Libra. Now, see, to know anything, you have to have the ability to measure. Otherwise, you can't know anything. That's what thinking, the process of knowing and thinking actually is being able to judge things. So not only was this God's judgment, like the scales of Libra, this is also our ability to judge. Our ability to judge is how we can even have knowledge, to know. Check this out. When a woman knows a man or a man knows a woman, especially biblically, that means that they had sex. That's not an accident. Again, the tree of knowledge. Now, Libra is also contained within the word library. Some people out there will be like, oh, these are not etymologically connected because Libra is associated with liter and measurement, and Libra is just inside of the word library, but library comes from the word liber. Liber means book, and it also means the inner bark of a tree. But I'm going to tell you right now, you're barking up the wrong tree if you don't think that these things are connected, because as I'm about to show you, they are very much connected. Because see, to know anything, you have to have the ability to weigh and measure, like the scales. See, the equinox is associated with the equator. It's a halfway point between light and dark, to know good and evil. Of course, because the equinox is when we're halfway between light and dark, but on the descending side, but halfway nonetheless. Light is associated with good, and darkness is often associated with evil, although it's not always that. It's not completely black and white. But that's another thing that came along with eating the fruit from the tree of knowledge, was the ability to know good and evil. Well, of course, because it's the halfway point of light and darkness. And Libra being inside of the word library. See, where do you get knowledge? Where did people go to learn things? Ever heard of the Library of Alexandria? Libraries are associated with knowledge. Okay? Library coming from the word liber. Remember, liber is associated with book, but also the inner bark of a tree. Hello? Hello? The tree of knowledge. Books are made from paper and trees. Library. And the ability to know anything is the ability to judge and measure. So this is not just God's judgment, it's our ability to judge. If you're finding value in this video so far, please hit the like button and don't forget to subscribe to my channel and click the bell icon to be notified when I come out with new videos on occult and mystical topics. And there should be a link below this video where you can access not only the videos I have available on YouTube, but exclusive member-only content, including and not limited to more astrotheology or astrology in the Bible videos like this one. If you got any questions, feel free to leave me a comment and I'll get back to you as soon as I can, and enjoy the rest of this video. But I hope you're understanding how all these things connect. Libra is the original placeholder of the 7th house, which is known as the descendant. The descendant. The 7th house is known as the descendant, folks. So think about that for a second. The fall of man, being born into this world and having to die. This is all stuff that has to do with living in the material world. And before this happened, it was obviously, there was another reality before this, because these things didn't begin in this story until the fall of man. And remember, this is an astronomical fall too, because every year we fall from 0 degrees Cancer to the 0 degrees Capricorn, or from the summer to the winter solstice. And the descendant, see, even Adam, they didn't have ascendants. That's another astrological term, ascendant. It's the 1st house. They couldn't have ascendants. They were the first. So the only place they had to move was to the descendant. I hope that makes sense. You see, even Adam, knowing each other, is how the very first, they left the very first descendants. Because this is associated with the descendant. And the original placeholder of the 7th house is the 7th sign, Libra, of love and relationships and fertility. I hope this is making sense. Do you really think that all these things are a coincidence? Or maybe we should redefine what coincidence is, or maybe understand it in its proper context. Coincidence doesn't necessarily mean, just random necessarily. So, yeah, it's pretty deep stuff. So, the descendant and leaving behind descendants and the descending force and the fall and Libra and the scales and knowledge and even the inner bark of a tree. All these things are connected. This all has to do with the autumn equinox and the fall. And there was something else I was going to say and I forgot. But anyways, maybe it'll come to me. We're going to go to the next image here. And here is the last quadrant, the last mystery of what I call the cardinal cross, because each one of these signs corresponds to a piece of a Maltese cross. You see this image that you see when you see this abbreviated zodiac wheel with just the cardinal signs filled in, it creates this image. You see? Because see, when you fill in the pie pieces of the zodiac signs in the way that I've done, right? Eliminating the rest of the signs and just leaving the cardinal signs, this looks like a Maltese cross. And these are cardinal signs. You ever wonder why in the church you have cardinals that also have Maltese crosses? Because this is also associated with the sun, because this is all about the path of the sun. The sun's relationship to the earth is what creates the seasons. But what I was going to tell you is with the Libra sign and the equinox and it being the original placeholder of the 7th house, which is the descendant, is not only associated with sex and leaving behind descendants, it's also about serving others. That's another mystery. There's too much to go over here, but the last quadrant here is the Aries quadrant. But I won't leave you empty-handed. But I will tell you this. Aries is associated with the ascension, the ascending force. And if you look at the synonyms for ascendant, one of the synonyms for ascendant is ancestor. Ancestor. So people talk a lot about their particular ancestral knowledge. But this right here is the ancestral knowledge, period. Because this is the language of the stars, the language of the zodiac. This is about the real ancestors and where we come from and our connection to the literal heavens. What do you think heaven is? Now, I went ahead and highlighted all these all these different 4 quadrants, these different placeholders of these cardinal signs and their themes. And I'm going to just tell you right now, every day of the creation, every day of creation in the Bible, something new is created. There's 6 days of creation and the Lord rested on the 7th. Although on each day of creation, something different was created, there's a common thread that holds all of those days of creation together, and that is the way those days are concluded. Each and every single day is concluded like this. And the evening and the morning were the first day, and the evening and the morning were the second day, and the evening and the morning were the third day, and it continues on through the 6th day, and the Lord rested on the 7th. So each day of creation, although different, is concluded with the evening coming before the morning, not the morning coming before the evening. This is why a lot of the Jewish holidays, let's just take the Sabbath, it starts at nightfall on Friday, Venus Day. Let me break out my stylus here again. Isn't it interesting how it begins at nightfall on Venus Day? Remember, Libra is ruled by Venus. Libra represents the fall. Now, when we talk about days of the week, times of the day, fall is to the year as evening is to the day. One is part of the yearly cycle, one is part of the daily cycle, but they're a descending force nonetheless. So, in this mystery school, I've branded this mystery school around this energy right here for a specific reason. We'll get more into that later. My name is Tyler Hardy. My initials are TH. Lowercase th looks something like that. The symbol of Saturn. This place here in Libra is very important because there's this thing called exaltation and debilitation in the zodiac. We'll get into more of that later. You can look these things up, but I promise you, you will not find the information online the way I'm presenting it here. Anything remotely close, you won't find. Guarantee it. Challenge anybody to find it. But exaltation, debilitation. Every planet has an exaltation sign and a debilitated, a place of debilitation. Libra, this quadrant here, Saturn is exalted in Libra, and the sun is debilitated. Saturn is the planet that rules darkness. Saturn is exalted in Libra because Libra is the place where light is overcome by the darkness. And Saturn rules the night, and night is to the day as winter is to the year. And he's also not just Father Time, but Old Man Winter, because winter is the night of the year. So Saturn is exalted in Libra because this is where the night has overcome the light. We're in the dark half of the zodiac. And the sun is debilitated. The sun being debilitated doesn't necessarily mean anything bad, nor does exaltation necessarily mean everything's, good. It's not black and white like that, even with astrology and reading charts. But this is way bigger than reading charts. In this mystery school, we're going to spend a lot more time building out this language so we can actually have a practical use for it. And it's not just about reading charts. This is all personal development. That's what this is all about. I've branded my mystery school around this energy right here, the descending force. And the reason why is because the descending force, in part, is about serving other people. And just like the evening comes before the morning in every day of creation, and the Lord rested on the seventh, do you think that same pattern is on that seventh day? We're in the seventh day. Why do you think we had to fall first before there would be a mystery of the Messiah? That ascending force on the eastern quadrant is all about the mysteries of the Messiah. We had to fall before there would be a risen one, before there would be one who would ascend to heaven. And we will leave that, we'll leave the rest of that for later. But I will leave you with this. Aries is symbolized by a lamb. A ram. But a ram is a male lamb. And if you're familiar with the Christian doctrine and mysteries, you know that Yeshua, the Messiah, is associated with being the Lamb of God. And he's also the Son of God. But we're going to get more into that later. Now, the precursor in the Old Testament to the Messiah is that once Eve and Adam are driven out of the garden, in the eastern direction, I wish you guys would look this up, in the eastern direction, Eden is guarded by cherub. There's a plural word way of saying that. I'm not exactly certain how to pronounce it, but for lack of a better way of putting it, we'll just call it a cherub. All right? Cherub, if you've ever seen a picture of a cherub, it looks like a child. It looks like a small child. Aries, which is the representative of the Eastern direction, is symbolized in part as a child because it's the very first sign of the zodiac. It represents, it's the placeholder of the first house, first sign, first house, right? And that represents our humble beginnings as a child, our first stage in this world. So in the Eastern direction, which is one association, we have a cherub, which is a child in Aries. That's a second association, guarding the gates to Eden. The third association is that it's a flaming sword. Aries is a fire sign. And not only that, Aries is associated with, well, the god of war, Aries. And sword implies combat. So there's 4 different associations here. And this is just the precursor of what's to come later and the mysteries of the risen one and the one who ascends. And this is also the ancestral knowledge. Right, it's on to the next lesson. Go ahead and click this video right over here. And don't forget to subscribe.